Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today, W are going to discuss a moment in history that irrevocably changed the world, the atomic bombing of Hiroshima. This isn't just a story about a weapon, it's a story about people, decisions, and the profound consequences of war. Our goal here is to understand the full context, why it happened, the events of that fateful day, and its lasting impact on humanity. By looking back, we hope to reinforce the importance of peace and ensure that such devastation is never repeated. So, let's step back in time, not to judge, but to learn. To understand the bombing of Hiroshima, we must first understand the state of the world in 1945. The Second World War, a conflict that had engulfed the globe for 6 long years, was in its final, brutal stages. In Europe, Nazi Germany had surrendered in May, but the war in the Pacific raged on. The Empire of Japan, driven by a fierce code of honor and a refusal to surrender, continued to fight against the Allied forces, led primarily by the United States. The conflict in the Pacific had been a grueling island-hopping campaign. Battles on islands like Iwo Jima and Okinawa were incredibly costly, resulting in massive casualties on both sides. The fighting was ferocious, and the Allies projected that a full-scale invasion of the Japanese mainland, codenamed Operation Downfall, would result in an estimated 1 million Allied casualties and potentially millions of Japanese lives, both military and civilian. The Japanese government was mobilizing its entire population, including women and children, to resist an invasion with whatever they could find. Faced with this grim prospect, Allied leaders were desperate for a way to end the war quickly and with fewer Allied deaths. Meanwhile, a top-secret project had been underway in the United States since 1939. Known as the Manhattan Project, it was a monumental scientific undertaking to develop a new kind of weapon, one that harnessed the power of the atom. Scientists, many of whom were refugees from fascist Europe, worked tirelessly, driven by the fear that Nazi Germany might develop such a weapon first. By the summer of 1945, they had succeeded. On July 16th, the world's first atomic bomb was successfully tested in the New Mexico desert. The Trinity test revealed a power unlike anything ever seen before. This new, terrible weapon presented a new option to the U.S. President, Harry S. Truman. After the Potsdam Conference in July, where the Allies issued an ultimatum to Japan to surrender unconditionally or face prompt and utter destruction, Japan's leadership remained silent, showing no signs of capitulating. Truman was now faced with an immense decision: use the atomic bomb to force a surrender, or proceed with the land invasion that was certain to cause catastrophic casualties. The decision was made to use the bomb, in the hopes that its shocking power would compel Japan's leaders to finally end the war. Several cities were considered as potential targets. Hiroshima was chosen because it was a significant industrial center, a major military headquarters, and had largely been spared from previous conventional bombing raids, making it a clear target to demonstrate the bomb's full effect. And so, on the morning of August 6, 1945, the stage was set. In Hiroshima, it was a clear, warm summer day. The city's 350,000 residents were starting their daily routines, children heading to school, people going to work. An air raid siren had sounded earlier, but was quickly followed by an all-clear as the lone B-29 bomber, the Enola Gay, was thought to be a weather reconnaissance plane. No one suspected the nature of the payload it carried. At 8:15 a.m. local time, the bomb, nicknamed Little Boy, was dropped. It detonated about 2,000 feet above the city center. In a single blinding flash of light, a wave of heat estimated to be thousands of degrees Celsius instantly vaporized everything and everyone near the hypocenter. This was followed by a cataclysmic shock wave that flattened buildings for miles in every direction. Over 90% of the city's structures were either damaged or completely destroyed. The immediate human cost was staggering. Tens of thousands of people perished in an instant. For those who survived the initial blast, a new horror began. A massive firestorm engulfed the city, and a strange, dark, black rain containing radioactive fallout began to fall. In the hours and days that followed, many more succumbed to horrific burns and injuries. The true toll of the bombing would continue to grow for years, as thousands more would suffer and die from the long-term effects of radiation sickness, including cancers and other illnesses. The total number of deaths directly or indirectly caused by the bombing of Hiroshima is estimated to be between 130,000 and 150,000 people. It was a level of destruction humanity had never before inflicted upon itself in a single moment. In Tokyo, the Japanese leadership was in a state of shock and confusion. Initial reports from Hiroshima were fragmented, only speaking of a tremendous explosion and the city ceasing to communicate. It took time for them to grasp the scale and nature of the new weapon. Despite the unprecedented devastation, there were still hardliners within the military council who refused to surrender, believing they could still negotiate terms or fight to the bitter end. 3 days later, on August 9th, with Japan still not surrendering, the United States dropped a second atomic bomb. This time, the target was Nagasaki, another major port city and industrial center. The bomb, called Fat Man, was even more powerful than the one used on Hiroshima, though the city's hilly terrain limited the blast's radius. Faced with this overwhelming combination of a second atomic bombing and the Soviet invasion, the will of the Japanese leadership finally broke. Emperor Hirohito, in an unprecedented move, personally intervened. He addressed his council, stating that the nation could no longer endure the suffering and must accept the Allied terms. On August 15, 1945, the people of Japan heard their emperor's voice for the first time on the radio, announcing the nation's surrender. The Second World War was finally over. The official surrender was signed on September 2nd aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay. The aftermath of the bombings left a deep and lasting scar on the world. The cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were in ruins, but the survivors, known as the Hibakusha, showed incredible resilience. They began the slow, painful process of rebuilding their lives and their cities from the ashes. Hiroshima, in particular, chose to rebuild itself not as a monument to war, but as a beacon of peace. The Hiroshima Peace Memorial Park, with the iconic Genbaku Dome, one of the few structures left standing near the hypocenter, serves as a solemn reminder of that day. The atomic bombs of 1945 ushered in the nuclear age and the Cold War, a new era of global tension dominated by the threat of nuclear annihilation. The world lived for decades under the shadow of mutually assured destruction. But the horror of Hiroshima and Nagasaki also sparked a powerful worldwide movement for nuclear disarmament and the promotion of peace. The testimony of the Hibakusha has been crucial in reminding the world about the real, human cost of these weapons. Today, Hiroshima stands as a vibrant, modern city, but it has never forgotten its past. It continues to advocate for a world free of nuclear weapons, its story serving as a powerful lesson for all of humanity. It teaches us about the devastating consequences of war and the critical importance of diplomacy, understanding, and empathy in resolving our conflicts. It is a story of immense tragedy, but also one of incredible strength, resilience, and an enduring hope for a more peaceful future. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this important and difficult chapter of our shared history. If this story moved you, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into the events that have shaped our world. Learning from our past is the best way to build a better future. Thank you for watching.